I'm delighted to be joined by Liz Corless from Keywords. How are you doing today?
I'm really good, thanks. How are you?
I am well. We're heading towards the end of the day and still got a few things to do, but how's your show been so far?
Oh, it's been incredible. It's been really great. I love coming to these things. You walk around, you bump into everyone that you know, and actually really Game of Connects has got so huge now. The scale of it is just incredible. So it really is one to mark in the diary for everyone, I think, within the games industry.
Well, we're lucky to have you and to be here after everything that happened over the last few years. So maybe if people aren't familiar with Keywords, what is it that you folks do?
So Keywords is a global end-to-end service provider to the video games industry and also entertainment industries. So the team is about 12,000 plus globally. We have around 70 studios, and it really is, a huge company that works with the 23 of the top 25 gaming companies around the world. So a massive company that really does have a lot of exposure to everything that's going on in games. So it's a great place to work. Lots of really cool studios.
So when you say end-to-end solutions, perhaps folks that maybe are on the indie side might not know specifically what that means. What do you mean by that?
Sure. So our services are divided up into 3 service lines. So we have Create, which is art services and game development. Then we have Globalize, so everything to take a game or a product to market. So that may be, QA, so testing, localization, anything to do with making it more available within more markets and just making sure that it's really going to work for all of the different audiences that we have. And then we have Engage, kind of the final step within the process. So within Engage, we have marketing studios for creating any campaign assets that needed, as well as a lot of strategy, building and fostering communities. And then we have our player support, player insight as well. So that's really about looking after the communities that we've built, but also making sure that they're really happy within the games. And just recently, we acquired HelpShift. So HelpShift are an in-app customer support platform. So we really do have this ability now to be keeping players in the game, making sure they're really happy, but then also taking all of that feedback that we get from the product and using it to then iterate, and we go back into Create again so that we can be looking at making the game better, making it look better. So the idea being that actually this cycle goes round and round and the games get better, we build more audiences and more players within those games and really get people to fall in love with game franchises. A lot of the time now we're finding that fans like particular game companies and the games that they make or particular genres of games. So it's really important that we recognize those communities. So that's how we're set up, and it's working really well.
That's quite a broad focus compared to, I speak to a lot of service providers and they'll maybe tackle one, perhaps 2 elements of that. When you have it all under the one house, I imagine there are huge benefits to that, as in you can keep that flow, like you say, end to end going. Are there any, do people feel like they might be restrictive in some way, like you're tied into one element? And if you perhaps say, I'd like to do the development bit and the publishing, marketing bit, but maybe not the support bit. Is there an option for that, or should people be really buying into the whole thing?
No, absolutely. They're all about plugging in where we're needed. So, when we team up, there's obviously a lot of magic that happens in that moment because we come together. If you team up with, if you brought 2 different companies together that were maybe not part of the same group, you may find it harder to get them to have those synergies from day one, to understand each other's processes from day one. But actually, because we're all part of the same group, and that comes very naturally, we can send out one invoice or have one contact. But actually, if a client is coming to us and saying, I just need you to do the art services side of things, or, I just need some game development or a marketing campaign, that's absolutely how we're used to working. So we just work on a project-to-project basis. But when we do team up, obviously we can offer more there as well. Ultimately, the way that we work, it's about allowing our customers to imagine more for their titles. So, whatever that may be, we can work with them to essentially make what could be a fixed cost into a variable cost. So, they can lean on us for what they need, but they don't necessarily have to, build an entire team internally to handle what might be just a part of a long-standing project. So we allow them to have a workflow that can expand and contract based upon their needs as and when they need it. And also sometimes we find that customers will come to us at one stage and then we see them maybe a year later for something else within the same product, which is really nice actually, because you see how a particular game has evolved or how they've grown an audience, or maybe they've soft launched it already. and then we can just get up to speed on the status and then take it from there. So we do really get a sense of almost being, in a true partnership with them and just plugging in where you're needed at any one time.
Is there an element of that development cycle that you feel most developers, or at least perhaps first-time developers, overlook? Because there's a lot of focus for indies, certainly, where they develop the game, they're very excited. They get to the end, they go, oh yeah, maybe I should do some marketing and maybe build some monetization into that. And that's where a lot of people trip up because of limited bandwidth. Is there an area you feel gets neglected a little bit?
I think, ultimately you have lots of different skill sets within a game. That's the beauty of gaming. I love gaming. I've worked in it for 19 years. I love the fact that there's so many different people with different skills and different focuses. So when it comes to a game, it's inevitable that there's going to be, a core focus of where, a particular customer is pointing all of their, all of their energies. That often comes from, essentially, if you're looking at a smaller team that are launching a very, I suppose an indie product, a lot of the time you're only going to have a very core small team to start with anyway. And so ultimately their skill set's probably going to be focused on a few key areas rather than everything. I think where we come in is that we can, quite quickly get up to speed and understand the areas where they maybe do need some support and plug in there, whilst also, really being respectful of what's there, that skill set, that magical big idea for a game. There may be something in the mix where you're like, we don't want to touch anything to do with, the visual side of the game because you've really nailed it. Let's just leave that alone. But we're going to help you to actually understand, who your audience is, how you're going to take this to market. There's so many games that get launched all the time. And I think sometimes there's parts that are forgotten, which is a real shame. Because I think we can definitely help with those areas when the time comes. So whether it be about actually understanding who your target market is, who you're actually talking to, what the opportunity is there, or even being able to identify a particular market where we haven't necessarily considered launching your game, but actually there's huge investment there, gaming's really taking off on this particular platform, and we can help there. So really it's about having that conversation as early as possible in the process. And it may be like, see you in 2 months' time, or maybe see you in 2 years' time. But I like to think they'll be able to help anybody with any part of a game in the process, and also help them to identify maybe the parts where they have potentially not considered future investment when actually it's essential for the success of a product.
Gotcha. Okay, jumping off from that, when is the best time to get you folks involved if I was a developer? How much information do you need from that person to help you do what you do?
So I think it really depends on the type of product, because obviously certain games have longer cycles than others. But if you were looking at, say, a first-person shooter, for example, on a, maybe like a console platform, or it's on like a PlayStation or an Xbox, I would say at the point where there is some initial sketches around a game, an idea of what the visual look would be, that's a really great time to actually engage us as a company, because it's at that point that we can help to identify that need and also map everything out. So a company that I used to be studio head at, Itchy, they worked on a game, I think it was 4 years out from now. So getting there super early, talking about the game, talking about who its targets at, and actually starting to look at the positioning of that product out into the market, and being that fresh pair of eyes and that sounding board. So this is before you had anything, any game code, any kind of vertical slice, any game art really, on a kind of a large scale. And it was the best time to be involved, because you're going into it hand in hand, looking at something that essentially at its inception, which is a really exciting time to be involved. And then, ultimately you work for a while, and then it's like, see you in 3 years' time for a marketing campaign, and then maybe another studio might get involved at that point. So yeah, as early as possible, but also it's never too late. You work for products when, they've already launched, they've been out for ages, and actually we're looking, at a new path for expansions, or, maybe a new iteration of the game. And so it's never too late to talk to keywords, but I like the really early stage products, because I really like to see something that's just a little seedling for us all to look at it together and work out how we're going to make this into a huge tree. So yeah, I like that part.
It's a lovely note to leave it on. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thanks so much.